Let's get it, boy.
Let's get it.
Welcome back, guys.
This
Another
is
week.
your guide to foiling components.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, boy.
Foiling components and all the weird terminology we'll use.
Slang.
If you're wondering what high aspect means, we'll try to describe it to you now.
Well, should we chuck a little counter up on the screen? See how many times we say it.
Should we start? First thing, board. What is different to a foil board than a surfboard?
There were 4 tracks.
Oh,
So it's got foil tracks.
getting spicy now.
Yeah, okay, you go now, Max. We'll go 1 each.
Sorry.
And when the person runs out, they can leave. So 4 tracks, go.
They're typically a little wider than the average surfboard.
They typically are a little bit shorter than the average surfboard.
They typically have more leaders than the average
I
surfboard.
was gonna say that. That's really about it. They have a bit more of a
Get
funky shape.
Yeah. They've
They
got the
have-
concaves.
Concaves. Some have rail concaves, some don't.
Mm.
The basic concept around concaves, the rails make it easier to hold the board, and the concaves on the bottom of the board make it easier for sort of early lift. So the board to
The
release,
release
board
off the
release
water, yeah.
and early lift and less sticky. So once
Yeah.
you
So if you touch down, it doesn't
Yeah.
suction on.
The boards are shorter, so you can pump better.
Mm.
Okay.
Usually the shorter the board, the better, to an extent.
It will pump.
Yeah. If you're only
Yeah.
just starting, get a bigger board. You know, once you get better and better, shorter and shorter.
Okay. Second thing, foil tracks. What are they?
Just 2 routed out grooves in the bottom of your board, isn't it?
They're just like a fin system that allows the board base plate of a foil to be attached to a board.
So pretty much all you're going to do is slide your bolts into it and strap your foil down onto it.
Yeah. Different foils have different screw systems, but it's pretty
Yeah.
self-explanatory.
Okay, next thing, base plate. So most brands which have carbon mast don't have a separate base plate because the mast is attached to the base plate.
Yep.
So how about we start with Max talking about Axis and how they're slightly different.
Yeah, well, Axis is cheaper model, first of all. So because it has an aluminium fuselage mast setup. So pretty much what they have 3 components to the mast. The doodad, which connects the fuselage to the mast, and it's that little sort of spiky thing that goes into the mast. And then it also has that base plate that allows it to attach to the board.
Yep.
So
Should I go Armstrong?
Armstrong? Yeah, what's Armstrong got?
Well, Armstrong's just, it's all pressed as one piece, so your base plate and your mast are the same piece.
Okay, and lift is very similar to Armstrong in that it's just one big molded piece base plate to mast. And okay, if I was going to give advice to people who are buying foils, the one thing you want to look in your mast is how stiff it is.
Mm.
I'm not going to say which brands have stiffer or less stiff masts. We don't want to.
I'm not going to expose that here.
But if you're going to do your research, that's what I would think about. Which one has the stiffer mast?
Yeah. Well, definitely, and then you also look at, well, obviously aluminium versus carbon.
That's weight.
Yeah, but then also that changes stiffness, will change stiffness as well.
Yeah,
if you're looking
stiffness
into it.
is important, as we said before, for maximizing the power put into the foil, and so it ensures sort of when you're turning and doing other stuff like that there's no twist. And
I mean, you
maximum
can
power.
have some flex, obviously.
Yeah,
Flex
Yeah.
is good to an extent.
but you don't want heaps.
You don't want heaps.
Yeah,
Okay, and then you got different mast lengths. Why would you choose different mast lengths?
Different types of foiling. Usually stay between a 70 and a 80, a 70 and an 85 mast.
They're the most common lengths. So
70,
somewhere
I think 72s and 85 is
Yeah.
most common.
if you're entering into
Inch.
foiling and you choose a
That's
mast
inches,
between
isn't it?
70 and 80 centimeters
centimeters.
long.
yeah. Also, don't buy like insanely short. I wouldn't go any shorter than a 75 mast.
Next thing is the fuselage.
Axis, as of yet, don't have a carbon fuselage. There's only aluminium. So they have carbon mast, which attaches to an aluminium fuselage.
The Armstrong is a carbon fuselage with a titanium core.
Yeah. And Lift does it slightly differently. They've sort of got their mast split up into 2 pieces. The fuselage. So half the fuselage is attached to the front wing and that goes into the mast. And then the second half of the fuselage is attached to the back wing. And it would make more sense if I put up a photo, which we'll do. What are you thinking about when you choose your fuselage? Why would you choose a long versus
length.
short fuselage?
Well, for learning, standard or like longer fuselages allow for a bit more stability. So less back and forth sort of rocking.
I
But
What do we call that back and forth rocking? What's like the technical
So-
term?
Altitude.
Okay.
Right.
So
Right.
up and down,
Altitude.
longer fuselage will help you with altitude.
And then law
Yeah.
is obviously
Your
your left and right.
which is probably going to help a little bit with that as well.
Well, I think the shorter you go, the less stability you have.
shorter's more like radical, sort
Mm.
of less stable,
snaps
but
and things.
more insane calves.
Yep.
Cool. All right, I guess the next thing is backwing. So
Yeah.
maybe we should go and define a couple terms that we're going to use for the wings, because this is probably the most important part. So like there's a lot of there's numbers on the foils.
Oh,
What
yeah.
do those numbers mean? So how is your foil named, Max?
Well, axis is named through the wingspan of the foil, front and back wing, so that's how long it is.
Wait, should we do that? So we got width. We're going to call how wide it is. Width.
Yeah.
And then depth, or there's another
What's
word
the
for
term?
it.
Max knows the term.
It's chord.
Chord, that's what it is.
So you got width,
Yeah.
chord,
Yeah.
and then we'll call that thickness.
Yep.
It's
Alright.
pretty much the three things, right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Width can also be length depending on what way you
Yeah,
look at it.
width
It's
and
the
length.
same thing. It's a bit confusing, but
Okay, well,
yeah.
for now we'll just call that
If you hear length, it probably means width. Just
the longest
the
part
same
of the
thing.
foil is
the width or length.
yeah.
the
And we'll
wingspan
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
is width or length.
Well, axis is named, as I said before, through the size of the width, not
Mm.
the chord. The width only. That applies to the front and back wing. So, like a back wing that's 40 centimeters in length, it's called a 400. They do it in millimeters as well. So it's
Yeah.
like the 1010. That's 1010
100.
millimeters.
Oh.
101 centimeters, and then 1.01 meters. Whatever you want to do.
Yep.
Yep.
Perfect.
Armstrong do it. I think they do it on surface area squared, centimeters squared. They do.
There's
They do
two
both?
different ways of naming it. You've got projected area
Yeah.
projected
and
yeah.
actual area.
Actual area,
So
yeah, yeah,
projected
yeah.
area is like you looking down bird's eye view, the 2D view
Yeah.
of it.
They do it weirdly.
And the actual area takes in like the curvature of the
The
foil.
curvature, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so. I think when they actually name it, they don't do the curvature. I think they just do
Yeah.
that
Projected.
projected area. So like the back wing, which is what is it, 232? Yeah. Usually you get you get your 233. Will just be that top surface area.
And that's in
squared.
centimeter squared, and then lift.
So lift
is
is the exact same, but for some reason they've done it in inches. So 170 is 170 inches squared. Max, should we do back wings? What would make you choose a different back wing? What factors are you considering when you choose your back wing?
If I'm starting out and I want to be really stable on the foil, I will go a wide back wing that has a large chord, as one would say. So it just pretty much a lot of volume in your back wing constitutes stability. And you also see back wings with little wingtips versus flat ones. The wingtips pretty much allow for more stability on the turns versus flat, or a little bit more, sort of feel like a bit more skatey and a bit looser.
Yep.
Easier to sort of snap and turn, but less
Maneuver.
stability.
Yep.
Like the 460 and the 400s.
Yeah. Well, I never think
There's not that many
with Armstrong. There's not. They only have a really small range of back wings. They
Also, just to point out, as you see on Axis versus Armstrong, Armstrong has their back wing on the bottom of the fuselage, whereas Axis goes the top. So it's a different setup. I'm not entirely sure
the benefits or
the benefits or the functionality of that, but it's just something to note.
Well,
that
but
it's-
I guess because we have different fuselage as well, and your fuselage sort of runs straight, and then you put it on top. Well, ours sort of like tapers off into
Yeah.
like a flatter, so it's sort of like in line with the fuselage.
Yeah.
So it's all pretty like similar in like all follows a direct line.
Yeah.
So I think if I was going to look at that, the positive of having it on the bottom is your back wing's less likely to come out of the water. Negative is it's going to be hitting on the rocks if you're sitting on rocks. So lift is slightly different. You've got the front wing and then you slot your back wing in. So it's half the fuselage is attached to the back wing. And that means that you're not actually attaching your back wing by itself to the board. Limitations with this is you don't really get to choose how long your fuselage is. Lift has a pretty set length of its fuselage.
Oh, can you not buy longer like that end part?
At the
The
moment,
piece?
pretty much all of them are the same length,
Right.
or similar in
Can you
length.
get the front wing shorter ones? Shorter?
No.
Oh, right.
So that's one thing to consider when buying that. But I genuinely think that the length that they've chosen for a slightly more intermediate to advanced rider, it's pretty much the perfect length for most sports. And then the good thing about that is the back wing is actually straight in the middle of the fuselage. It's not having to be strapped on the top or bottom.
Yeah.
Okay, front wing. This is where we're going to start bringing up the aspect ratio. Aspect ratio counter starts now. What's good
Alright,
about...
we've defined chord.
Yeah.
And we've defined width or length as whichever one you want to call
Yeah.
it. So both of them constitute to an aspect ratio, which is pretty much, I don't know the exact definition, but I can give you a close one. It's pretty much the length,
The
the
width.
amount of width to the chord.
So it's essentially a measurement of width versus chord.
Yeah.
And I think the brands all do it slightly differently.
I know Lift do it really
It's
weirdly.
like it's weird. They like square something and
Yeah.
then they take the area and they like root it. It's all really weird. So, but pretty much it's just a ratio between the width and the chord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, if we were to take an example, like
Yeah.
a 9 aspect ratio
Yeah.
would mean that the width of the foil is
9 parts
about
of the
9
chord.
parts as long as the chord.
So yeah, the ratio is 9 to 1,
yeah.
pretty much.
I don't know if that. Yeah. But essentially
that-
9 it's a lot wider than it has chord.
Chord, yeah. I don't
And
know
if
if that's the exactly.
Yeah, I
they
don't
would have to.
actually
They
know.
would have to do something
Yeah.
else with it, but
And if it was 5, then there's not so much width versus chord.
chord, yeah, it'd be wide, but then only be about
Yeah.
5 width.
It's
5
a general, yeah,
chords
a
of-
general explanation. It's not
Yeah.
exact. They do some other funky stuff, but
So I also think it's sometimes not perfectly accurate to compare two brands. If they're both calling them a 10 aspect ratio, it doesn't mean that both are exactly
Mm.
the same aspect ratio.
Well, I'm pretty sure your 120 and my 925 are pretty similar aspect ratio.
Yeah.
But then you put them side by side, and you can just tell that the chord on yours versus the chord on mine way different, and then length versus as well as the. I've already forgotten the term.
Yeah.
Like the bend in it.
So then we choose high aspect. We all have high aspect wings
Yeah.
because they are slightly easier to. They're better for pumping. They're
And
more
turning
efficient.
and-
Yeah.
Well, I actually don't know.
And the lower aspect ratio wings are generally what they call more surf performance
Surf
wings.
performance wings.
And so they're more for carving.
high aspect pretty much just constitutes to a lot of speed.
Mm. Well, you definitely, the better you get, like the more you would change to, like, let's say you go from a beginner to intermediate stage, you would want to start upgrading wings to higher aspect ratio. And
I think another important number that they sometimes give you is volume.
well, I guess it's the more, the wider. What do you call it? Thickness.
Thickness.
The thicker it is, that's what we're pretty much talking about.
Yeah.
You have more surface area on that front edge, where if you're looking at the foil face on, so it's more like resistance to that water.
So it's going to be slower, but it's going to get up earlier.
Mm.
Have we missed anything?
Oh yeah, we have, because Armstrong have a weird thing where
Shims.
they give you they give you a shim for your back wing, which is
Yeah.
you get a
Okay.
when you get given it, you get a 1 degree and you get a 0 degree. We should probably explain shims first before.
So
There's-
generally
Armstrong
what
lists a lot.
shims do though is putting a shim in your back wing will generally, if it's like a +1, if that's what they're calling it, it's going to give you slightly more front foot pressure, slightly more lift.
Mm.
And really your way to think about that is think about which way your lift is going to be giving you, your back wing's giving you lift.
Yep.
How you're changing that angle, is it going to give you more or less lift? And in which direction is that going to be more or less?
Mm.
And then figure out how that's causing a torque around your base plate.
Yeah.
And that will tell you what's going to do.
Yeah. Pretty much. That's a
It's-
good explanation.
All right.
Right.
Yep.
That was our quick rundown on foils, I guess.
Yeah.
Is there anything we're missing?
Not really. Oh man, not really. Well, if you're looking to get into foiling,
Yeah.
this would be a great way to understand the whole foil, and hopefully it helps.
Okay.
Now we have to.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Hope it was helpful.
All right. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching.
Cheers.
See you next week. Outro music. Boom, boom.